Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sabrina and I am the owner of Sab Stuffies. And today I want to talk to you about my brand new pattern, which is an advent calendar. It is a wall hanging advent calendar and I've been working on it for the past number of days and I'm so excited to share it with you. This is actually going to be a part of the pattern. So this is going to be the finishing touches portion. You can purchase the actual pattern and video tutorial for the advent calendar, but this is going to be the final touches. So that's going to look like adding numbers to the advent calendar to each of the pockets. And then it's also going to be a hang the advent calendar with me. You can see one here behind me. It's not finished, but I will show you the mostly finished one and design in just a little bit. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about why I decided to do an advent calendar pattern. And it all started when I was looking online for my family and to purchase an advent calendar. We typically do the smaller advent calendars that are pre-packaged, so ones with chocolates or little toys or a certain theme. But this year I wanted to do more of a fill your own, so we could kind of incorporate our family's traditions, Christmas traditions or bucket list items. And as I was looking for that's when I realized, why don't I just try to make one with chunky blanket yarn? So that's what I started out doing. And of course, if I am making something new, I am going to try to make a pattern for it as well. So that way you guys can make it. So there's not really any point of me making something just for my own, because I'm going to be making content out of it anyway, and I know that so many of you are going to ask me if I have a pattern for it. So I thought might as well just write out a pattern for it and do a video tutorial for it as I was going along. So that is how we kind of came to making an advent calendar pattern. And for this, I knew that I wanted to do something a little bit different because it's outside of my typical patterns. I have a few blanket patterns, so it's kind of in that realm, but it's not a blanket. So it's my first pattern that I'm not doing a stuffy or a blanket, and it's something more unique and exciting. So I wanted to switch things up a little bit. And I also wanted to do this video to explain further in depth of everything that the pattern includes. If I was gonna do the advent calendar, I knew that I had to include cards or inserts that you can put into each of the pockets. So I did decide to create a PDF in Canva that you can edit and customize to your own family's traditions. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about for the intro of this video. Now let me show you what the advent calendar looks like. Okay, so we have this red one that is finished, the backside of the calendar. I just need to add pockets, of course, to it, and then the border. And then this is the one that is almost finished. I still need to add 2 more rows of pockets, and then of course add the numbers to it as well. So this is what the advent calendar is looking like so far. So there is the bottom 3 rows, and then I have 2 more rows to go. So this advent calendar will not have extra space up at the top to add anything that says if you want to write Merry Christmas or advent calendar. But this one, I know it's gonna be a little bit hard to visualize it because there's no pockets on it yet. But the pockets will probably come up to here, so there will be a little bit of space here. If you wanted to glue some felt letters on it, I'm definitely going to put like Merry Christmas on it. There are those 2 options in the pattern. And then you can either add a border if you wanted to. I will show this in the video tutorial and it will be in the written instructions as well. Or you can do no border as well. I love the look of the border. So later tonight, I am going to work on adding the rest of these pockets. And then tomorrow, hopefully, I will continue with this video where I start working on adding the numbers to the pockets. Let me show you the supplies that I picked up real quick to be able to add those numbers to the advent calendar. So first of all, I've got a hot glue gun. I do already have a mini one, but I'm actually not quite sure where that is since we've moved, so I just made sure to pick up a hot glue gun and some extra glue sticks that's also in the bag. I also got some command strips to hang up the advent calendar. I think I'm going to use 3, 2 on either side and then 1 in the middle, which I'll go into the details a little bit later in the video once I add the numbers on. It says holds 3 pounds per hook, so I think that I'll have to weigh the advent calendar by the time it's done. It does use quite a bit of yarn, so it is a little bit on the heavier side, but I don't think it will be more than 9 pounds. We'll see, but you can easily use nails or screws or anything like that as well. And then another thing I picked up is all of the felt sheets. I did a sparkly one. I don't know if you can see that. Sparkly felt sheet paper, green because I will be doing an ivory one at some point, and then just plain white as well. So the idea is I'm going to cut out a bunch of numbers with these felt sheets, and then I am going to hot glue them onto the pockets, which I've used felt before on the Chunky Blanket yarn and it holds pretty well. So I think that this is going to be a great option. I was looking for some stencils as well for the numbers, that way I'm not freehanding it. But I think what I'm going to end up doing is printing out a sheet of paper with all the numbers with a specific font that is easy to cut out, and then I'm just going to lay it on top of here. I'm going to cut out the numbers around it, but again, we'll be going into that a little bit later, and I think that should work, but we'll see. So I am back and I have finished this one advent calendar. It looks so good. You could actually squeeze some lettering up here if you really wanted to, like Merry Christmas. It might be a little bit tight. I'll show you on the red one. I haven't finished the pockets on the red one yet, but I think the pockets turned out so good for the advent calendar. I did weigh it, if I remember correctly. I think it was 4 pounds, so it's actually, I don't know why, it just seems so bulky and heavier than it actually is. It's really only 4 pounds. Which, you know, if it was a blanket, yeah, it would be a lot, but you're just hanging it on the wall. So anyway, I'm really excited about how that turned out. And then my printer is either running out of ink or it needs to be reset, but I did print out some numbers. So my original idea was just put it on the felt sheet like that and, I don't know, secure it with tape and then just cut both out at the same time. But I think I'm just going to cut out all of the numbers and then I'm going to just trace them on here. That way I'm just cutting this sheet. So I'm going to take some time now to cut out all of the numbers, and the link to the document or the PDF of these numbers, if you want to print them out, are available and linked on my actual pattern. So I will be back with you once I cut these out, and then we will trace them on together to see how that goes. So I have to do 25 numbers total. Many of them are going to be doubles, of course. So definitely a lot of cutting to do, but hopefully it turns out okay. I never said that this was going to be a quick project, that is for sure, but I think the end results will be worth it. Okay, so I am back and I have all of the numbers cut out. As I was doing it, I realized that I only needed to cut out one of the 6 or the 9, and my daughter was with me and watching me cut out the numbers, so she cut out the 6 for me, because it's just an extra one, and I'm just going to use the 9 twice. So it was a little bit tedious, but not too bad to cut out all of the numbers. The ones that I had to cut the holes with, like the 8 and the 4 and the 9, that was a little bit of work, and it's not perfect, but I'll make sure to be a little bit more careful as I'm cutting the actual felt. So now I'm going to take the felt sheets and I'm just going to do the plain white, and I'll see how it works, but I think I am going to do 2 sheets at one time, and if it's not working, then I'll switch to a single sheet. So I'm going to put the number 1 on here, and when I trace this on, I think I'm going to use a Sharpie, but I will make sure that this is, the Sharpie side is going to be the back side of the numbers, and then the clean side on the other side is what I'm going to actually put on that shows on the advent calendar. So I am going to trace number 1 and see how that goes. Okay, so I traced number 1 and I'm going to cut it out and see how it goes. It is really windy outside right now and the lighting is changing like crazy right now, so I'm sorry about that. But number 1 is done, and I feel like if you have a really good hand and you're nice and steady, you could probably just freehand this, but I chose to do the stencils. So definitely the 2 sheets, it's a little thick. So I really have to cut pretty hard, but it seems to be working. Okay, so my number one is out. So I just realized that I needed to flip this one upside down and then trace it in order for the marker not to show on the correct side. We have one good one and one not good one, and it's definitely a little bit difficult to cut with two sheets on top of each other. It's a little bit harder. So I think I'm going to try the one again and just do one sheet and trace this one upside down, so that way it's done correctly. So I'm going to continue cutting out numbers. This might take me a while, but I will be back with you once I have all the numbers cut out. So I just finished cutting out all the numbers except for the 0. I still need to print out a stencil for the 0, but I did all of the numbers. It probably took me less than an hour to do all that, which it was a lot faster than I thought, which is great. I think I was just getting the hang of cutting them after a while. So I'm ready to hot glue them on, except for one problem. It's just the color difference between the numbers and the border that I put on the green advent calendar. So let me show you what I mean. So the numbers are bright white, and then I did this in the ivory color. I'm almost tempted to take out the border and put on the bright white instead. I mean, I can notice a big difference. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. I'll think it over. It's definitely going to be more work to undo the border and redo it, but if it looks better, then I might just do that. So we'll see what I end up doing. First, I need to cut out the 0s, and then I'll be back with you. Okay, so I printed and cut out the stencil for the 0. I traced it out, and while I'm cutting it out, I am going to talk about what I decided to do for the color differences with the numbers and the border on that green advent calendar. So I think I'm going to take the border out, which not the best option, but I think it will work the best because I do want to put a wooden dowel in one of the advent calendars for pictures for the photo listings, so that way people can see what the different options are for creating the advent calendar and especially hanging it. So because I already did the border on both the red and the green advent calendar, I can't have the border all the way around when I'm adding the wooden dowel. The original idea was I also am making an ivory advent calendar, and I could have added the wooden dowel to that one, but I'm just not going to have enough time to make that ivory one. So I have to undo the border for one of the calendars anyway. So I'm going to undo the border for the green calendar, and then I'm going to put a bright white border around that one. So we will see how long that takes me. That was definitely not on my to-do list for today, but I am going to be glad once I take that out and have it all done. That way, at least one of the calendars has the second option for hanging the calendar. Okay, so here is 1-0. I found out about halfway through that if I just fold the felt number, any of the ones that have that middle circle, I just fold it in half, and I'm sure some of you are like, of course, like that's how you do it, but sometimes just a little slow. So I just fold it in half, and then I cut out the half circle, and that helps it stay even too, and it goes faster. So that is what I'm doing for these guys. I'm going to redo the border, put the wooden dowel in, and then finally I'm going to hot glue all of these numbers on the calendar. Okay, so that went much faster than I thought. So I got the wooden dowel added to it, and then I re-added the border in a brighter color, and then just, of course, 3 edges instead of the top one because we can't really add the border on the top. But I think the bright white yarn will definitely go better with this color felt. I think it matches a little bit better. Definitely not a perfect match, but when you pair the brighter white with the ivory, I think the ivory kind of looks a little bit dirty. I don't think it looks as good, but I think it was definitely the right move to switch out the border. And now I officially have a calendar with the dowel on it, which is really nice. So now at this point, I am going to hot glue all of the felt numbers on here. So when I do the hot glue, I'm going to go on a thin line tracing the number and then put it on. I'm not going to do any squiggling or anything like that with the hot glue gun. I'm just going to put it right in the center. That way when I press it on to the advent calendar, it is hopefully not going to ooze out or kind of overflow outside of the number. And then once it cools a little bit, I can go back in and see if it needs any on the edges and go from there. So let's go ahead and glue the numbers on. So I've got my glue gun plugged in and I'm waiting for it to heat up, but I figured I would come on here and talk about placement. So when you put your numbers on, you want to make sure that they're pretty high on the pocket and not centered on the pocket, because the pocket does curve down a little bit. When you hang it up on the wall, it is not going to look centered and the numbers might be hiding a little bit. So you want to make sure that it's up pretty high and just below this edge right here. And then from side to side, you just want to make sure that your number is centered. I just put a piece of paper behind here in the pocket. That way, as I'm gluing, I can press down and there's a little bit of a barrier in case any of the glue seeps through. It's pretty thick, so I don't think it should, but let's go ahead and see if the glue gun is ready. Okay, that definitely came out a little bit faster than I was hoping for, but I will know for the next one. So I'm just going to place that right at the top and right in the center. And then I am going to just press it down. So I'm going to let that cool and then go through it again to see if I can add any extra glue anywhere. But I think a little bit of glue is going to go a long way. So now I'm going to continue going through each pocket and just gluing all the numbers on. So I've done one here, and then I'm going to go two, and I'm just going to go across for each row, and then I'm going to come down here, and this is going to be number 6 and go across, and so on. So it is a little bit later now, but I put the 9s on backwards. Well, I put 1 9 on, and so now I need to cut out 2 more 9s, and I think 1 more 1 because I have seemed to misplace another 1. So I'll show you what it looks like now. So here is how it is looking. It is definitely an advent calendar, but I will say that the numbers, I feel like we need some type of 3D or something other than just plain numbers. It does look a little bit sportsy, or maybe it's just, I'm from Pennsylvania, which is Eagle Nation, so it is looking a little bit Eagles-like, but maybe it will just be an Eagles-themed advent calendar. But anyway, here's my backwards 9, so I'm going to try to cut that off and recut out a 9 and another 9 in 1 for here, and then I'll be all done.
I finished adding the last few numbers and now I'm working on hanging it up. I used 3 command hooks on the wall, 1 on each end where the edges of the calendar will be, and 1 right in the middle. You can simply rest the wooden dowel on the hooks like I have it here, or add bows if you'd like it to hang from them instead. To make the bows, I cut about 3 feet of yarn and folded it in half around the wooden dowel. Then I tied it into a bow just like tying a shoe, adjusting it so the calendar hangs at the length I want below the hooks. I repeated this for all 3 hooks, 2 on the ends of the dowel and 1 in the middle. Once all 3 bows were tied, I lifted the calendar off the hooks and placed the yarn loops over the hooks with the bows sitting right at the top. From there, I adjusted each bow one at a time, raising or lowering the strands as needed until the calendar hung evenly. Then I retied each bow neatly right on the top of the hook. After I finished hanging it, I decided to add some garland to decorate it, and then later on I even added some twinkling lights, Christmas berries, and little bells on each corner. And I think it looked amazing and so put together, and there are truly endless ways you can style it. So I am back for round 2. I have the second advent calendar done. This one has a little bit more space at the top for me to put Merry Christmas on the top, so I'm excited to do that. And then let me show you what I found at the store that I'm going to try to use as stencils. So I was in Michael's and I came across stickers, and these are definitely a little bit smaller, I think, than the others cutouts that I use. But I'm excited to see the smaller numbers on the advent calendar just to see which one I like better. But it does
say that it comes with numbers, so I'm going to use the numbers, and I'm also going to use the letters for Merry Christmas, as long as it works, so we'll see. And for this advent calendar, I'm going to use these sparkly paper or felt sheets. So I think I'm going to try to just stick it right on there and then cut it out instead of doing any tracing. So I'll bring you along with me and see how that turns out. And the good thing about these is that if I accidentally cut the numbers or the letters as I am cutting out, there are, I think, 3 letters, or some of them actually only have 2. The vowels have 3, and the other ones have 2. So I do have backups if need be. Okay, so I've got the numbers. I'm going to start with number 1. And I'm just going to stick it right on the felt sheet and see how that works. Okay. Number 1 is on, and I'm going to cut it out and see if that works. So I'm just going to cut slightly bigger than the sticker. That way I hopefully don't accidentally cut into it. And these are pretty small numbers, so I think just going slightly bigger is going to be helpful. And I don't have to worry about putting the stickers backwards or anything, because I'm just cutting it out as is. Okay, so I cut out the 1, and now I'm going to peel off the sticker and see if it peels off okay. Okay, not too bad. It does take off a little bit of the fuzzies. See, it gets a little bit extra fluffy, but the 1 looks good. And I think it will work, and I'll keep reusing this sticker. And as I go, I think the sticker is just going to become a little bit less sticky, but it still should stick on. So I am going to cut out all of my 1s and all the rest of my numbers, which again is going to take a little bit of time. And then I'm going to also cut out all the letters that I need for Merry Christmas to also glue onto that one. So I'm going to take probably an hour and a half to cut all of that out, and then I will be back with you. But let's see how the 1 looks on here. It's definitely a little bit smaller and a bit of a different font or design for the numbers, but I'm really excited about this option as well. And this makes things so much easier, just doing the stickers instead of the tracing and then cutting it out. So I am back, and it's actually more like 2 hours later, but I did finish cutting out all of the numbers, and I also cut out all of the letters for Merry Christmas. It's right back there by my laptop. But I am so excited to hot glue these on and see how it all looks. And I will say that using the stickers was actually such a good idea. It worked so well, and it was so much easier not having to trace anything. Cutting it out worked out perfectly, and peeling off the stickers was actually not too bad at all. So now at this point, I'm going to hot glue all of the numbers and letters onto the advent calendar, but I'm going to do that a little bit later. So I'm going to hot glue them on the same way that I did before. Once that is finished, I am going to check back in with you and show you the completed calendar. So I have the advent calendar finished behind me. Here is the final look. I'll turn it around in just a minute. One thing that I learned with hanging it without the wooden dowel was just that if you're going to be adding some lettering up here like this, you might want to add it after and hot glue it after you've hung it, just because when you hang it without the dowel, it does create a little bit of unevenness throughout the advent calendar. But overall, I think it's really great, especially when it's all decorated like this. It helps kind of pull away from the distraction of the letters being a little bit wavy and uneven. But I think overall it turned out great. So let me flip it around and give you the full view. So here is how it looks hung up. And again, for hanging it, I just wrapped a piece of yarn directly into the border at the top, and then just tied it up there and did the exact same thing I did with the wooden dowel to make sure that the calendar was even. So there it is. So that concludes the finishing touches portion of the advent calendar. I hope you enjoyed making the advent calendar. I know that I had a lot of fun bringing you guys along with me as I was adding the numbers and all the different options for hanging it. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them for you. And with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!